short-term pain and long-term gain. This is the motto of Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, who calls himself an anarcho-capitalist. He once brought out a chainsaw in public to symbolize that he would cut all public spending by the government. 56% of Argentinians showed confidence in his promise that his aggressive policies would bring Argentina out of the boom and bust cycle. He became the country's president in December 2023. He did what he promised, and the aftershocks are now in full swing. Upon assuming office, Milei ended all government subsidies for public transport, electricity, gas, and water. He also devalued the country's currency by 50% and fired 15,000 government employees. What happened after that was exactly what Milei expected.
De corto plazo vamos a tener sufrimiento, pero después vamos a salir.
The average bill for public services in the Buenos Aires metro area increased by almost 450% between December 2023 and August 2024.
So we're telling the government to pay attention to what is happening and to resolve the situation of hunger that they are creating.
Milei reduced real spending on pensions, social security, public wages, and education. He eliminated half of the government ministries and terminated government contracts in the development sector.
Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Afuera, 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 afuera.
This was all part of Milei's aggressive plan to pull Argentina's economy out of its persistent deficit. Public spending decreased by 90% in the first 3 months of 2024, impacting everything from schools and hospitals to hydroelectric dams. As a result, Argentina's government now spends less than it receives in revenue, which is crucial for a country that has defaulted multiple times on international debt. Since Milei took office, the government has maintained a fiscal surplus, an uncommon achievement for a country like Argentina, where governments typically spend far more than they earn. Inflation has also been decreasing on a month-to-month basis. However, critics argue that these improvements are due to Milei's spending cuts and may not be sustainable. When Milei slashed public spending, Argentina entered another recession, leading to widespread job losses and homelessness. Half of the population has fallen into poverty, and inflation currently stands at 271%, the highest in the world. Meanwhile, wages are not increasing fast enough to keep up with inflation. But despite these challenges, Milei is not like traditional politicians. He has a rock star persona and less than 3 years of experience in electoral politics. From Donald Trump to Brazil's Bolsonaro, from Tucker Carlson to Elon Musk, Milei enjoys the support of right-wing figures worldwide.
Make Argentina great again. Viva la libertad, carajo!
Additionally, there is strong resentment in Argentina against traditional politicians and their policies. The country's economy has long been troubled, spending a third of the last 70 years in recession, with persistent issues of hyperinflation. The economic crisis of 2001 was so severe that Argentina saw 5 presidents in just 2 weeks.
¿Ustedes creen que una Argentina distinta es posible con los mismos de siempre?
Milei promised to eliminate the country's currency, advocating for the adoption of the US dollar. He argues that because Argentina's central bank can print money at will, it fuels inflation, and therefore, he wants to abolish it. He also aims to privatize all state-owned entities and attract foreign investors. The IMF is pleased with his performance, and Argentina's international bonds rallied by 7%, indicating growing investor confidence. Elon Musk even called Argentina the best country for investors. However, Milei is not getting everything he wants. The biggest obstacle is the country's left-wing opposition, which opposes many of his policies. His coalition holds only 15% of the seats in Congress, forcing him to rely on the opposition's support. For most of his policies, he has relied on executive orders. On March 14, the Senate rejected his proposal to amend 300 existing standards. However, after intense negotiations with the opposition, whom he derogatorily calls the rats, the bill passed in June amid protests by labor unions outside the congressional building. The new law includes incentives for foreign investors, a plan to privatize some state-owned companies, an expansion of presidential powers over economic policies, and provisions allowing employers to fire workers for participating in protests. After an economic uptick in May, the country's economy contracted by 3.9% in June, posing a challenge for Milei as he looks ahead to next year's midterm elections. While he has maintained his popularity so far, the public's belief in his policies will ultimately be tested at the polls.